you start an iconic movement? Mannerism would say it's all about refinement and richness of invention. Classicism would say it's all about form and craftsmanship. Impressionism might answer, it's all about capturing the magic of every single moment. While Surrealism would find all of this quite, well, surprising. After all, it's about creating the icon of a new movement. Welcome to Forwardism, the new BMW 7.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to have you here. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Shoma Chaudhary. I'm the founder of Lucid Lines, an intellectual properties company that's passionate about the power of conversation and ideas. And a huge welcome to all of you on behalf of all our partners to Ignition, which is a platform that seeks to explore different keys to different worlds and to expand the space for democratic discourse in our societies, space for debate, discovery, dialogue. We are very, very proud to partner with Shiv Nadar Foundation, which is a truly enlightened corporate. It's a foundation that was founded by Shiv Nadar, the founder of HCL. But their core ethos is the power of transformation through education, and they really walk their talk. They, of course, have institutions of eminence, universities, school right here in Gurgaon and in Chennai. They also have a massive amount of scholarships for underprivileged children, and they believe in the power of cultural transformation, support habitats, arts, all of that to arrive at one particular idea, which is that we all need to participate in enlightened citizenship. So it's particularly wonderful to have them partner with us. We also have BMW, which believes in the power of change. They believe in the need for an energy shift, and they have been working for almost 10 years on electric mobility through their I-Series, and they have a car outside, which is the iX. It's the first absolutely all-electric, high-luxury mobility car, which is luxury based in the ethos that we are living in a time when none of us can be blind to climate change. So they believe in joy with conscience. We have DLF, which is synonymous with Gurgaon, needs no introduction here. But again, a real estate company that doesn't just build buildings, but builds communities and believes in 21st century living. They are synonymous with that. And of course, we have Diageo, Johnny Walker, needs no introduction because when you hear the chatter, you know what is liquefying that chatter and making us also garrulous. So it's wonderful to be partners with them. And Brand Avatar, who's our production and event partner, a wonderful set of people led by Hema Chandran. They are partnering us in Chennai as well as here. And I'd just like to give a shout out to our own team at Lucid Lines. Aditya Puri, my partner and co-director of Lucid Lines. There's Ritika Pasi, Navamita Chandra, Himanshu Arya, Kabir Puri, and several others who are behind the scenes in putting this together. So a big thank you to them and a great welcome to all of you. We have a fantastic lineup this evening, and I'm going to dive into all of it right away. But before we do that, because you're all here and you're a captive audience, I also wanted to use this opportunity to announce a really exciting project that we've been working on, and that I think is an absolute first of its kind platform in India. It's going to be here in Gurgaon. We are bringing the entire world here. And when I say the entire world, it's people from America, UK, Africa, China, Middle East, you name it, India, Singapore. And the heart of it is that it's a science, technology, and society conference called Synapse. And we are particularly excited to be doing this because we believe that all of us kind of glaze out when you hear science and technology. You think this is the realm of Silicon Valley or the IIT geeks. We think of it as separate from our lives. But being a journalist and meeting, over the last few years, I began to realize that the one connecting thread in all our lives, regardless of whether we are entrepreneurs, corporates, political leaders, parents, lovers, anything, academics, educators, the one thing really connecting all of us is science and technology. It's the new hand of God, absolutely transforming our lives while we sleep. Generative AI has put that on the map, but there are transformative forces in the world that we are not engaging with, we are not anticipating, and we hope with this platform that we will put science and technology and human ingenuity at the center of public engagement in India. It'll become a platform not just to celebrate breakthrough inventions, cutting-edge frontier thought, but also to look at the intersection between science, technology, and society. And we'd like to present the entire kaleidoscope way in which it is impacting our lives. We cannot afford not to be engaged. When we talk about age reversal, gene editing, generative AI, post-human, post-truth, post-nation state, post-existence, you'll understand why we are so excited to present this, why it's so important. And I'm going to just stop with two quotes. Yuval Harari, who's looked at the entire sweep of human history, said there's always been change. We've always had technology. We've always had disruption. But this is the first time in human history when human beings are going to be replaced. And that is what is so distinctive about it. E.O. Wilson, another biologist, has this quote that should become our Bible. He said, it's terrifying because we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. So we're going to be bringing together stars, actors, writers, ethicists, scientists, Nobel laureates, technologists. It's going to be an entire menagerie. Please block your dates, 24th and 25th of February, here in Gurgaon. We'll be reaching out to you. Please be our word spreaders. And I'm just going to show you a sneak peek of it before we begin to invite other stars of our evening today. So that's it. Please do block your dates, 24th and 25th. We'll be in touch. And again, we are very, very proud and very enabled by Shiv Nadar Foundation, who's our title sponsor. And like I said, they're really backing cutting-edge conversations, and it's an honor to be connected with them. There are other partners who will be announcing over the coming weeks, but I just wanted to give you all the first. This is the first time we're announcing it publicly, so I'm really delighted to share that with you. And now, next up is a person who absolutely embodies an argument that has been raging in the public domain, which is that what really is India? There's been an argument, are we India, are we Bharat? Is Bharat exclusive of India? Is India exclusive of Bharat? And there's no one better who can literally epitomize the spuriousness of this conversation than the speaker who's going to be coming on stage. We had a speaker in our last edition, G.N. Devi, a linguist, and he had a beautiful description of India. He said, we're a collaboration of civilizations, that there are many timelines in this country. History takes note of timelines. But in India, timelines are contiguous, and diversity is at the heart of who we are. So at this time, when there's been this riven public debate, we thought of having no other than Shubha Mudgal to be here and to share a song yatra across India with us. She's a Padma Bhushan awardee. She has a lot of accolades to her. But as I said, for me, the best introduction to her is to say that she epitomizes the spirit of India that we live in our daily lives and we are protectors of and proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shubha Mudgal. Shubha, thank you so much. It's always amazing to have you here, real honor.
Thank you, Shoma. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. But now I'm a little scared with what I saw right now. I said, what am I going to do in this age of artificial intelligence? Where am I going to be? Is somebody going to give me all the rags that I sing?
Well, it's true. One of the big debates is what is human creativity, because it can be replaced. It's not only replicable, it's replaceable. But Shubha is also one of the speakers at Synapse, because we're going to run one strand through the conference, which is what machines can't do. And there again, you epitomize what machines can't do. So all human hope and repository is now in you, Shubha. But let's start, Shubha. As I said, the whole conceit of having you here today was to really remind us of the sheer beauty and spread of India. And that starts with you, in your person. So, share your childhood with us. What were the kind of musical influences that shaped you in your childhood, starting with your mother?
Well, I grew up in a home of music lovers. Very often when you meet musicians or when you read their biographical information, a lot of musicians who come from families and khandans of musicians, they say we are 7th century followers of a tradition. I guess I could only say that I'm from a tradition of music lovers, because my parents were not Khandani musicians, but they were absolutely, obsessively in love with the arts, to a point where I think had they perhaps, had somebody nudged them a little, they might have become full-time artists. But they had both learnt music to a certain point. However, they hadn't taken it up as their careers or their livelihoods or their professions. They taught English literature at the University of Allahabad, and my only sibling, Ragini, who is here, both of us were given every possible opportunity to engage with the arts, to learn whatever we wanted. We started out by learning Kathak dance. I started when I was about 4, and my mother would also teach me a whole lot of compositions and various kinds of music. So, when you first asked me to speak today, I thought of the one point that perhaps has been part of my musical journey throughout. And the one part that remains constant and is never shaken is the diversity, the sheer rich diversity of Indian music. So when I started out, my mother first taught me a very famous Tulsidas bhajan, Thumak Chalat Ram Chandra Bajat Pejanya. She was a great admirer of Pandit Divi Paluskar, and his record had really become hugely popular. And so my mother taught me that particular composition of the great Tulsidas bhajan. She herself was from Kumaon, so we grew up listening and learning Kumaoni folk songs, Kumaoni holies that she knew. My father was had lived for a long time in Banaras, and his family knew a lot of wedding songs. And so we also learned all the many wedding songs that were in the family. When we started learning Kathak, we had teachers from Rajasthan, the Gangani family, which is very famous for its commitment to Kathak, and they've been torchbearers in actually teaching. One of the family of Ganganis was teaching us, and he would also teach us, how to dance on small Rajasthani folk songs, O mane pivariyo acho ghano lage main koni jaun sasariye, which we would dress up in lehengas and dance to. So here itself, within the very first few years of my life, I was listening to music that was part of the accompaniment to Kathak. I was listening to Tulsidas' bhajans as it was being rendered by a great doyen of the Gwalior Gharana. I was listening to Kumaoni folk songs, remembering, learning Rajasthani folk songs. And so diversity really has been the one big thing that I've cherished.
So, Shubha, that's, just to carry that joke one notch further, is that maybe there'll be a time where AI can actually write dohas, and they can write, they'll be trained on these data sets and they can do it, but they'll never be able to sing like you. So give us a sense of what your childhood oral sound was. So sing us a bit of the bhajan that your mother taught you.
So it went like this. A lot of you would have heard it and probably know it also. Thumak chalat Ramchandra, ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र. Or for example, when she taught me a Kumaoni folk song, a Kumaoni holi, which was very popular, it went something like this. जल कैसे भरूं जमुना गहरी, जल कैसे भरूं जमुना गहरी, ओह ठाड़े भरूं राजा राम देखत हैं, ठाड़े भरूं राजा राम देखत हैं, बैठे भरूं भीजे चुनरी, जल कैसे भरूं जमुना गहरी, जल कैसे भरूं जमुना गहरी, जल कैसे भरूं जमुना गहरी.
Beautiful. You spoke of your mother and this confluence, but you were saying earlier to me when we were speaking, you said that your father actually was the alter ego there, who loved film music, and he was always playing the flute and doing film songs, humming them. So pick something from your childhood which you think of your father and you remember a song.
I remember that he was a great, great, great Kishore Kumar fan, and he would make us these mixtapes of Kishore Kumar's songs, of his favorite ones. And he would very often say that his favorite song from Kishore Kumar was Koi Hamdam Na Raha, Koi Sahara Na Raha, Hum Kisi Ke Na Rahe. And he would play that on the flute, although he was learning classical music from Pandit Raghunath Seth. He would often play film songs for us. He was also, he had learnt classical music, but he was a great storyteller. And I remember one occasion when he said, I've also learned classical music. He sort of boasted to us. And we said, really? He said, do you know what a Lakshan Geet is? I bet you don't know what a Lakshan Geet is. Now, a Lakshan Geet is really a way of teaching people about a rag. So it's a song about the rag and actually carries within the lyrics lots of little information about the rag. So whether it's to be sung in the evening, what kind of swars are used in it, what kind of mood it can create, etc. So all the lakshans or the characteristics are described in that composition. So he said, I bet you don't know what a Lakshan Geet is. I said, no, I don't. He said, I know one. I mean, I can teach it to you if you're nice to me. And I said, yes, please. And so he started teaching me a Lakshan Geet in Rag Pilu. Ajab thaat sakhi Pilu ko batavat. So Ajab thaat sakhi, it's a strange scale. Ajab thaat sakhi Pilu ko batavat. This was the first line, and then he taught me the rest of the song. Years later, when I started learning music formally, and my first music teacher, somebody came to actually see whether we could be trained in music or not. They said, have you learnt anything? And I said, yes, I know a Lakshan Geet. And my father sort of darted out of the room, hid behind the curtain, and then said, don't sing that. So I said, okay, I thought maybe let me sing Thumak Chalat Ramchandra or something. And then I asked him later, why did you stop me from singing that song? He said, because I didn't really know the next line. I just cooked it up and taught it to you. So he taught me, Ajab thaat sakhi pilu ko batavat, pal mein hasavat, pal mein rula.
Right. I'll bring you back to, if you don't mind, maybe just give us a bit of his Kishore Kumar songs, sing it with the gusto he must have if this was his.
He used to play it and have this very sort of, forlorn look, because he said it was such a song of great melancholy. I think he was up to some tricks, but I remember, I love the song myself, so just a line, although I'm not a specialist, but Koi hamdam na raha, koi sahara na raha, हम किसी के न रहे कोई हमारा न रहा कोई हमदम न रहा कोई सहारा न रहा.
Beautiful. I don't know about you all, but when you listen to that, somehow music is almost like a vehicle. Like I can almost picture your father pottering about in your house. You literally get a sense of the intimacy of a family, where this kind of a sound chamber is going on. So thank you for sharing that, Shubha. So when you became older and you actually started to train, formally for music, there again you had a troika of teachers that again is like a synecdoche for India, that they had so many different influences, so many confluences. So tell us a little about your teachers and use that again to give us windows into India, so Ram Ashray Jha, Naina Devi.
So actually, before I do that, I'd also like to mention that, the inherent interdisciplinarity that really characterizes the arts in India must be mentioned here. I was learning Kathak for a long time, and it was my mother's idea when I started learning the element of Abhinay, where you actually learn how to mime to a song. And at one point of time in the history of Indian music and dance, the dancer and the singer could be the same person. So the very person who actually danced would also be able to sing that composition. Today, we have an ensemble accompanying the dancers with a singer who will sing out the composition. But my mother felt that it would be a good idea for me to study music and to get an insight into music because she felt it would enrich whatever I did, whether I continued to learn dance or then dropped both or whatever. And so she said, there is this element of Thumri, but you can't learn Thumri till you learn Khayal and till you learn Ragdari music. So that's how I actually even thought of studying music. And I would have been, I would say I would have been about 16 or 17 years old when this question of learning music popped up. Although we were constantly exposed to a lot of music, I did remember a lot of compositions. I could recognize rags, merely because my parents really gave me the exposure to the arts. But I had no formal talim in Hindustani classical music. And at 16, 17 is unusual and unconventionally late. So my mother said, you'll have to work hard because things that kids learn at 5 and 6 you haven't learned, so you better be quick about it and really do a good job. And they approached Pandit Ramashray Jhaji, who was actually from Bihar, from Darbhanga. And he was teaching at the University of Allahabad and later became the head of the department there. They requested him, they went to meet him and said, our daughter wants to learn classical music. And Guruji said, has she learned? And my parents said, not really. And so he said, you know, I have a lot of very advanced students coming to me from across India to learn. The sare gama nahi karwa payenge. So you send her to somebody else, and when she's learnt a little, then you come back, I'll consider your request. And soon after that, I was learning in school from one of his students, Srimati Kamla Bose, wonderful teacher and lovely person, wonderful first teacher to introduce you to Hindustani music. So in a freshers contest, I swaggered on stage because I thought, you know, I'd been learning, I'd been listening to music, and I said, there are not going to be too many people singing, so I just swaggered on with this kind of arrogance that I'd be able to, you know, hold my sway. And I froze as soon as I came on stage because one of the judges was Guruji. And for a freshers contest. And I know that I sort of wobbled weakly through whatever I was presenting. But a few days later, the doorbell rang and I was singing, I think, a song, a film song probably from Guide, because I loved the songs of Guide. And I opened the door and there was Guruji, and I sort of froze again in horror, and he said, hey, tumko seekhna hai na? Sikha denge hum. And he started teaching me after that.
Right.
I would go to his home with my parents early in the morning, learn from him, and that journey continued. He would teach me, again, I'd like to mention that though he's considered one of the greatest scholar musicians India has seen in recent times. But you know, he could teach me the most difficult of rags. He himself had created many folk songs. So if it was, let's say, holy celebrations in the university, we would all be taught songs for Holi. And if you didn't know, if they didn't have his pen name in the song, you wouldn't know that it wasn't an old traditional song. So that was, even there was so much of diversity and variety that he himself gave to us.
Right.
He had actually run away from home to join a Ramleela company and to sing in the Ramleela company.
In Allahabad?
No,
Or-
probably not in Allahabad, but he had run away from Bihar and had joined a Ramleela company, could play the harmonium fluently, could remember the entire, I think, Sundarkand he had memorized. His memory was phenomenal, and the kind of material that he remembered was, Shoma, just outstanding and sort of jaw-droppingly amazing.
Right. So you know, since he hardwired eclecticism into your music, again, you know, even if you feel that I'm making you perform every 3 minutes, but that's what we're all here to celebrate. So give us the whole, like, one end of the spectrum of what he taught you, something really classical and soaring, and then the other end of the spectrum, you know, which will make us feel like the length and breadth of India.
So when he first came when I first started learning from him, you are usually taught either an evening rag or a morning rag, and Guruji started teaching me a very popular and a rag with great scope. In fact, he used to refer to it as Maharag, because it had so much scope. You could sing a ghazal in it, you could sing a film song in it, you could spend hours singing a khayal or a dhrupad in it, a tarana in it, and that was called Kalyan or Yaman. So one of the first rags that I learned was Yaman. And interestingly, he would say, he would tune the tanpuras for me, and we would start the session. And then I realized that, you know, ucharan, or the way to enunciate or to actually sing out a particular swar, is so important. So for example, the Vilambit Khayal, this is a big kind of a slow composition that is taught, and which is quite difficult for a beginner to negotiate.
You're clearly being humble because he heard you.
Oh, I was a
he heard you
disaster.
spoiling. He heard you wobble through a freshers competition, and he came to your house to teach you, Shubha.
I think he
This
was
is
being
sounding
kind.
suspiciously like public figures and their humility.
Nahi, I think he was being kind to his colleagues, my parents. But because I remember that the first word that he said, the composition said, Mera man bandh lino. And the melody was something like this. Mera man bandh lino re. Now this little smudge that he would give, I just wouldn't get it. So I would sing, Mera man bandh suno, he would say. Mera. Can you hear the smudge? And I just couldn't get it in this kind of, it's like a smooth smudge. It's not a scribble. It's not mera.
Yeah.
It's mera. Man. There's a flowing quality to it. And I would keep listening. And though I had a fairly quick oral memory, getting used to listening to his ucharan, getting used to listening to the way he dealt with his voice, the way he used his voice like a paintbrush. You know, he was using his breath like a paintbrush. It was a journey that was delightful in more ways than one. And of course, I got scolded, rapped on the knuckles many, many times. And I made a nuisance of myself. I was disobedient, I was rebellious, and I wouldn't work as hard as I should have. But I think he was really kind to me. And my parents too were wonderful supporters in the way that they were always there, but never doting.
But you know, Shubha, every time I speak with you, the question that really knocks at my head is that what has happened in the way we speak about classical music in India, that it doesn't catch on and is, you know, it's still in a little alcove of its own, and not, I mean, a young generation listens to rap, you know, there's a mathematical beat, but every time one actually listens to classical music, it's so complex, it's something so, you know, wonderfully, it's got beat, it's got rhythm, it's got, so what do you think is missing? Like, why does this not jump the boundary and into a younger generation, into popular consciousness? Like, and before you answer that, top that up with then singing us something which just shows us the full raftar, you know, from the alap, the vilambit to the full pace, you know, like which would just wow us.
Yeah, so, you know, I think one of the issues is that I don't see why everybody has to like classical music. I mean, why should some people not want to listen to it? And why should we be perturbed about it? I mean, if diversity is so much a part of this wonderful country and this wonderful land, then let people have different musical tastes and preferences. And let's not get agitated about the fact that fewer number of people relate to classical music. But also, I think it's not just an issue about classical music. I think it is about traditional arts. And the way we talk about the traditional arts, we are almost giving them a kind of a hallowed reverence, creating a distance between the listener, the casual listener, and even among students. When you say to a student who comes to you to learn, even though it may be true, it is true, 40 साल हो गए हमको, अभी तो हमको कुछ आया नहीं, तो आपको क्या आएगा? Why is that child going to, or that young person going to come to you and learn? They'll say, 40 साल में नहीं आया तो भैया, why should I spend my effort and time on it? You know, I mean, this is the truth. Certainly mastery and perfection and an immersion is very much needed in any discipline, whether it's popular music or traditional music. So I think we've got to stop talking about it in these kind of almost, you know, that no, it's sacred, it's hallowed, it is mystical. It is all of this, but it's also beautifully sensuous and sensual and erotic and flirtatious and romantic and naughty and everything, you know.
So now you know you're going to have to sing each of those adjectives. You got to give us evidence, Shubha.
I'm a cunning one.
Okay, start with the erotic now, you know.
I mean, from Tumri compositions that say, काहे मारे नजरिया हो सावरिया रे काहे मारे najariya. What is kahe mare najariya? You're actually winking at somebody. or you say janiya tore joban madmate. Janiya tore joban. When you talk of youth, and very often all the nayikas in classical music lyrics are yuvati, youthful, sundari, beautiful, bhushan, bhushit, adorned with many, many jewels and various, adorned very magnificently. But what is youth? It's the breasts that people are referring to. So, Janiya Tore Joban Mad Mate, they put me into a trance, is very, very naughty, very, very risque, and yet it's part of the compositions that we sing. In fact, interestingly, I've mentioned this earlier as well, that very often, you know, when you upload a track to, let's say, one of the digital stores, that from now, where we now stream music, let's say iTunes or Music or Apple Music, very often there's somebody who's sitting there doing a translation of the lyrics, and so you get this asterisk which says explicit next to your...
Right.
It is. I mean, if you really translate it like that, it is explicit. So there is this, and there is, of course, you know, there are things like which talk about the importance of the guru. Re pa re ga re sa Guru ke pag pariye dhariye dhyan, man Guru ke pag pariye dhariye dhyan, man Guru ke pag. So there are also these songs which talk about the great reverence in which the Guru is held. So I think it's really a huge canvas that is before you. How you share information about that, what you select, and how you communicate. I think that's the important key to making it accessible.
So, you know, we were just saying not to make it hallowed, and so you're quite often also critical, though you've served Hindustani classical for your entire life, but you're also very critical of it, you know, in terms of it also revealing caste prejudice, gender prejudice, you know, it literally alienated women from its tradition. And yet women have really flowed into it and fueled the tradition as well. So can you talk to us about this inherent tension within Hindustani classical?
Yes, I think I really feel that the guru-shishya, the mentor-disciple relationship is a very special one because it allows for customized training for each student. So even though a guru may have a certain style of imparting training, for each disciple, he or she will customize it because each disciple's strengths and limitations are different.
Right.
And I think that's really a wonderful way for a teacher to impart and share knowledge.
But how does this relate to the question I was asking you about this discrimination?
So I think the amount, you know, the way in which the guru has been placed on a pedestal, and justifiably so, because these are people of great wisdom and great generosity also. At the same time, the power equation is completely skewed.
Sorry, Shubha, I was just trying to lead you to, you're talking about the teacher-student relationship, which you've already spoken of. I was asking that what role did women have to play in the classical tradition?
Yeah, so women have been, you know, I mean, they've played many, many roles. They've been disciples of the great ustads and gurus. They have paid them very, very, very handsome salaries and for training them. They have, you know, looked after them and served them, and yet, very often, women artists may be admired and respected for their immense musicianship, but they are never really put on the same level and stature as the male ustads and pandits. And it's not only about the fact that there's no term for, let's say, a female maestro. We don't have a word that sort of is, let's say, like an ustad. Today we are all called vidushi, but we are not called, that still is a newer term. And everybody who sort of becomes a top grade or A grade artist on radio is called vidushi. Right. So you're wise, but you're still not an ustad.
But okay, so let me bring you to the women in your life. So Naina Devi was a big influence in your life, and she was your teacher. So you were talking of Ramashray Jha and others that have played a big role. Talk about her music, and she was also drawing. She was from Rampur, the Agra tradition, etc. So how did that play a role in informing your music?
Naina ji was just, I think, she's the only female ustad I learned from, and she opened her home not just for me, but all her disciples in a manner that I can't tell you. It was just generosity at another level. And so any disciple of hers whom you speak to is going to come up with the same story about how Naina ji welcomed them into her home. She was, when I went to her Shoma, did you ever meet Naina ji?
No.
She was beautiful, very elegant, very delicate lady, and very, very elegant. And I was this strapping woman wearing handloom saris and, wandering around. And I went to learn from her, and here was this beautiful lady in chiffon and pearls from a family with a royal Kapurthala family, beautiful, elegant home. She would sit on a takhat in her home, and I would sit at her feet and learn. And my voice also was so powerful. I would feel, gosh, I'm sounding so like an Amazon singing in front of her, And she was just, but she would always say, look at the text. Look at the text, because she was teaching me Thumri, and Thumri is steered by the song text more than it is steered by, let's say, Khayal is steered by the rag, rules of the rag and the tal system. Thumri is steered, it's a Shabd Pradhan, a Gayaki, a system of singing that really looks at the text. So when you say, for example, Kaun Gali Gayo Shyam, which is a very famous Thumri, you toss the words around to give that sense of searching. The first phrase that you sing is, Kaun Gali Gayo Shyam. Now, to give a sense of search, Kaun Gali Gayo, Gali Kaun, Kaun Gali Gayo Sham. So you toss the words around, you place them differently, you elongate one. Kaun Gali Gayo Sham, Kaun Gali Gayo, and come back to the same line. But you try to express. You use the words to try and give a sense of that search for Krishna. Right. And it becomes a narrative. It begins with, where did he go? And then the narrative builds up through the pace of the song, through ways in which you present the text, through ways in which you insert silences. And all of that really makes it like a conversation. It makes it like a storytelling experience.
You brought up Krishna, Shubha, and we're going to run out of time soon. Is that, here again is the Braj Bhasha. It's so rooted in the Hindu tradition. And yet, you've talked about how there were these, again, confluences. There were Urdu words in Krishna bhajans. Yes. And there were, again, different streams flowing into this encounter and collision of cultures that makes up India. So can you sing literally end to end, maybe a Krishna bhajan which will blow the roof off our heads?
So, I found this one in an old temple text, which is often sung during temple rituals, but it's so lovely because it says, Milna ve mehboob bihari, Milna ve mehboob bihari, Bhor bhaye Vrindavan kunjo jana, होकर गली हमारी मिलना वे महबूब बिहारी हो मिलना वे महबूब बिहारी. Where on earth are you going to call Krishna Mehboob and Bihari at the same time? And then in the Antara it says, Mridu muskan sanu dil vich bhandi, in Punjabi. Jhamak jhulan nupur dhun pyari, milna ve mehboob bihari. So these are also texts that are found, multilingual texts with so many overlaps.
So we've still been floating around mostly in North India. So before we depart, I wanted to take us down south and in the Northeast, and I'm just coming back to that peg we had of India and Bharat. And our constitution literally says India, that is Bharat, and Bharat, that is India. So our constitution makers had that wisdom, but today we are trying to redefine it in very narrow terms. So, one, you have the Shimla choir, you can see the Christian influences there. And then down south, there's the Carnatic music. But you told me something very fascinating where you said the Carnatic music also jumped the Vindhyas and influenced Hindustani classical. So can you demonstrate that to us and tell us how surprising that is? Why it's surprising?
I don't think it's surprising at all because I think as communication becomes easier, as you get to hear people from not just different parts of India, but also different parts of the world, it's only natural that for a creative mind, how am I going to shut my ears and say, no, this is not from North India, so I'll never hum along with it. If I hear a beautiful piece of music from anywhere in the world, my first reaction is to try and see whether I can hum along with it. And I think that there were many encounters between artists from the Carnatic system and the Hindustani system, and slowly we have many, many rags which are actually, which were part of the Carnatic repertoire. One of the most famous is Hansadhwani, where a composer actually made a composition very much like the Kriti, that is a popular Kriti that is sung in Carnatic music. My Guruji, Ramashray Jhaji, he chose a rag called Kirwani, which is also sung it's borrowed in a sense. And he made this composition. See, if you hear it, maybe the Carnatic musician will tell you this doesn't sound like anything like our Kirwani, but it is, yes, the basic scale is the same. But it has become very popular and many, many musicians sing this, and it goes something like this. Mukutvaro savaro so mukutvaro savaro so lago amar manvare sajanva mukutvaro. So he has made this composition in Kirwani, which is actually in a sense not a rag that was a prachin rag, an ancient rag, or very much a part of the old catalogue of Hindustani rags.
Right. Thank you so much, Shubha. I'm going to end with maybe one request from the audience. Anyone who shoots their hand up can request a song that we should end in. Okay, that was quick. Yeah.
नैनो की भाषा सीखो ना नैनो की भाषा पिया कह रही तुमसे ये खामोशियाँ सीखो ना पिया लब तो ना खोलूंगी मैं समझो दिल की बोली सीखो ना नैनों की भाषा पिया हाँ. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shubha. you know, we could have lasted the entire evening. We've only started to like literally chip into your repertoire. But I think it's a beautiful window into who we are. And like I said, it's like carrying an oral history with us and memory of who we are all the time. Thank you very, very much, Shubha. We'll We'll take a short cocktail break. There are 2 lounges and 2 bars with some snacks. And let's meet again in 15 minutes because we have a fantastic lineup of speakers after the cocktail break. Thank you so much.